Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The day after we moved in, I got a call from the previous owner. I saw what your son did while you were at work. On camera. Come over. Alone. What could my son have done in a single afternoon that made a stranger so afraid? What I discovered next would shatter everything I thought I knew about my own family. My name is Ethan Hale, and at 58, I thought I had life figured out. As a payroll supervisor, I'm methodical, calm, and I pride myself on attention to detail. So when my 27-year-old son, Calder, offered to help me move into a new apartment, I was grateful for the assistance. What I didn't realize was that I was walking into a carefully orchestrated trap. The apartment was perfect, a 2-bedroom unit in a well-maintained building. Gordon Shevlin, the previous owner, was a retired engineer who seemed eager to finalize the sale quickly. During the walkthrough, he mentioned something about security features, but I assumed he meant the standard deadbolts and building access cards. Calder arrived with his girlfriend, Mireia Rosales, a 26-year-old social media influencer who immediately started taking photos of every room. "This place has such great lighting, Mr. Hale," she gushed, her phone constantly in hand. "Perfect for content creation." I should have paid attention to that comment. The move went smoothly, though. I noticed Calder and Mireia were particularly interested in my bedroom and home office setup. They insisted on helping me organize my important documents, bank statements, and work materials. Calder kept saying things like, "Dad, you need to trust me more. I'm just looking out for you." By evening, they had rearranged the entire living space. There was a strange smell in the kitchen, something like cleaning chemicals, mixed with unfamiliar food. When I mentioned it, Mireia laughed and said they'd ordered takeout from this amazing ethnic place, while I was signing paperwork at the management office. That night, as I settled into my new bedroom, I noticed a red light blinking in what I assumed was the smoke detector. I made a mental note to check the batteries in the morning, then promptly forgot about it. The next day at work, I felt optimistic. New apartment, fresh start. My son seemed genuinely interested in spending time with me. But when I returned home that evening, something felt off. The furniture had been moved again, and there were water rings on the coffee table that hadn't been there before. My phone buzzed with a voicemail. The caller ID showed Gordon Shevlin's number. "Ethan, this is Gordon. I forgot to remove a security camera from the apartment. I saw something today that disturbed me. We need to talk. Come to my new unit tomorrow morning. Apartment 4B. Come alone. And Ethan, be careful who you trust." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, replaying the message. A hidden camera. What could he have possibly seen, and why did he sound so nervous? I looked up at the smoke detector again. The red light blinked steadily, almost mockingly. That night, I quietly checked my belongings. My wallet was exactly where I'd left it, but something felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been going through my things with surgical precision, careful enough not to leave obvious signs, but thorough enough to find what they were looking for. The next morning, I knocked on Gordon's door at exactly 9 a.m. The retired engineer looked haggard, his usually neat appearance disheveled. He ushered me inside quickly, checking the hallway before closing the door. "I'm sorry about this, Ethan. I installed a camera system when I lived there. Old habits from my engineering days. I meant to remove it before the sale, but with the move," he trailed off, leading me to a small desk where a laptop sat open. "What did you see?" and I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Gordon clicked play on a video file. The footage was grainy but clear enough. It showed my living room from an elevated angle, the smoke detector's perspective. The timestamp read yesterday, 2:47 p.m. I watched my son Calder systematically going through my moving boxes. He wasn't just looking. He was searching for something specific. He pulled out bank statements, held them up to the light, then carefully photographed each page with his phone. When he found my work laptop bag, he spent several minutes examining documents I kept in the side pocket. "That's not the worst of it," Gordon said quietly. "But you need to be careful. There's more footage. But I wanted to show you this first. Your son, he's not just helping you unpack." My stomach dropped. "What else did you see? Let's take this slowly. You need to be smart about this. If you confront him now, he'll just get better at hiding it." Gordon's engineering mind was already working through the problem. "Document everything. Change your passwords. And whatever you do, don't let him know you're on to him. I left Gordon's apartment feeling like I was living in a nightmare. My own son, the boy I'd raised, supported through college, helped through his struggles, was systematically invading my privacy. But for what? That evening, I casually checked my desk drawer where I kept important documents. My birth certificate was there, my passport, insurance papers. But my social security card was missing. I found it the next morning, carefully placed back in its spot. But now I knew. Someone had needed it for something, and they'd put it back hoping I wouldn't notice. The red light in the smoke detector seemed to pulse with new meaning. Someone was watching, but now I realized it might be the only thing protecting me. 3 days later, my carefully ordered world began to crack. I was standing in the grocery store checkout line when my debit card was declined. The cashier, a tired-looking teenager, shrugged apologetically. Sometimes the system glitches. Try again. The card was declined twice more. I paid with cash, my mind racing. I checked my account balance just that morning. There should have been plenty of money. At work, I immediately logged into my bank account. The balance was correct, but there was something new, an external transfer authorization that I definitely hadn't set up. Someone had linked my account to an external bank, though no money had been moved yet. Mr. Hale, Tessa Klein from HR appeared at my cubicle. Could I speak with you privately? In her office, Tessa pulled up my employee profile on her computer. We had an unusual alert this morning. Someone attempted to access your payroll information and change your direct deposit settings. The attempt was made from an unrecognized device, but it used your login credentials. My blood ran cold. I didn't try to change anything. I figured as much. We've flagged your account and reset your passwords, but Ethan, whoever tried this, knew your employee ID, your mother's maiden name, and your old address. This wasn't a random hack. I drove home in a daze. When I pulled into the parking garage, my neighbor Nina Patterson was checking her mailbox. Nina worked as a school secretary and had the observational skills that came with managing hundreds of students daily. "Oh, Ethan, how are you settling in?" she asked, then lowered her voice. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you running some kind of business from your apartment?" "What do you mean?" "Well, there have been quite a few people coming and going during the day. Different people, carrying luggage. I only noticed because I work from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays." She looked embarrassed. "I don't mean to pry, but some of them seemed confused about which apartment they were looking for. Strangers with luggage, coming and going while I was at work." I thanked Nina and headed upstairs, my mind spinning. In my apartment, Calder and Mireya were nowhere to be found, which was odd since Calder's car was in the parking lot. I started looking around more carefully. In the kitchen trash, I found something that made my stomach drop. A printed checklist titled Airbnb Host Cleaning Protocol. Items like replace towels, check for guest belongings, and reset Wi-Fi password were checked off in Mireya's handwriting. They were renting out my apartment. I sat down heavily at my kitchen table, staring at the checklist. Everything started making sense. The strange smells, the rearranged furniture, the water rings on the coffee table. While I was at work paying for this apartment, my son and his girlfriend were profiting off it by renting it to strangers. My phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. Mireya had posted a story. I didn't follow her, but her account was public. The image showed my living room with the caption, "Another successful hosting day. Hashtag Airbnb life, hashtag hustle mode." In the background of her photo, clear as day, was my apartment number on a piece of mail sitting on the counter. That evening, when Calder and Mireya returned, they were in unusually good moods. Calder was practically bouncing with energy, and Mireya kept checking her phone and smiling. "How was work, Dad?" Calder asked. giving me a hug that felt performative. Fine, I said carefully. How was your day? Oh, just hanging out, looking for jobs online. He gestured vaguely toward the couch. This place is so comfortable. Really perfect for relaxing. Mireia giggled. It's got such good vibes. Very welcoming. I excused myself to my bedroom and immediately checked my banking app. The external transfer I'd seen earlier was still there, but now there was something new. A pending transfer for $200 scheduled for tomorrow morning. I canceled it immediately and changed all my passwords. As I lay in bed that night, I could hear Calder and Mireia talking in hushed tones in the living room. I couldn't make out the words, but their tone was excited, conspiratorial. The red light in the smoke detector blinked steadily above me. Tomorrow, I decided, I was going to ask Gordon to show me more of what he'd seen. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from an unknown number. Guest arriving 3 p.m. tomorrow. Please have key under mat as discussed. Looking forward to staying in your lovely space. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to myself from my work email. Then I sat in the dark, staring at the evidence of my son's betrayal, and began planning my next move. The next morning, I called my older brother, Ronan. At 63, Ronan had spent his life in blue-collar work and had developed a no-nonsense approach to human nature that I sometimes envied. You're being treated like an ATM with legs, Ronan said bluntly when I explained the situation. This isn't family helping family. This is theft with a smile. We met at his house that evening. Ronan's kitchen had always been a place for serious conversations, and tonight was no exception. Here's what you're going to do, he said, setting down 2 cups of coffee. Document everything. Get legal help. And stop hoping this will resolve itself with a heart-to-heart conversation. Calder isn't confused about boundaries. He's deliberately crossing them. The next day, I took a long lunch and visited my bank. Marcel Dupont, the fraud specialist, was a calm, precise man who listened to my story without judgment. Mr. Hale, I'm going to run a complete audit on your accounts, he said, typing rapidly. In the meantime, I'm placing alerts on all transactions over $50 and freezing the external transfer capability. He paused, looking at his screen. Actually, there's something you should see. Your debit card was used at our ATM yesterday at 11:47 p.m. Do you remember making that withdrawal? I was asleep by 11:30. No, I don't. Marcel pulled up the ATM camera footage. The image was grainy, but unmistakable. Calder, using my debit card, withdrawing $300 from my account. How did he get your PIN? Marcel asked. I thought back to all the times I'd used my card around Calder. My PIN was my mother's birth year, information I'd probably mentioned in casual conversation. He's had plenty of opportunities to see it. We'll reverse this transaction and issue you a new card with a new PIN. But Mr. Hale, this is criminal activity. You should consider filing a police report. That afternoon, I drove through my neighborhood, really looking at it for the first time since moving in. I stopped to chat with Nina, who was watering her small garden plot. I hope I wasn't overstepping yesterday, she said. But since you asked about the visitors, I actually keep a log of unusual activity. Old habit from working in schools. She showed me a small notebook. Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Young couple with rolling suitcases seemed lost, checking apartment numbers. Thursday, 11 a.m. Woman with large tote bag took photos of the building entrance. Friday, 2:15 p.m. Man in business suit. Spent 20 minutes on phone in parking lot before going to your floor. Each entry corresponded with days I'd been at work. Nina, would you be willing to write a formal statement about what you've observed? She nodded immediately. Of course, I've been worried about you, honestly. That evening, I visited Gordon again. This time, he was ready for me. I've been reviewing all the footage, he said, leading me to his computer setup. Your son and his girlfriend have been running a full operation out of your apartment. But Ethan, there's something else. Something that changes everything. He pulled up a new video file, this one from 2 days ago. The timestamp showed 3:30 p.m. In the footage, Calder and Mireia were sitting at my kitchen table, with my laptop open between them. But this time, the camera had audio. The direct deposit thing didn't work, Calder was saying. The old man's company has better security than I thought. It's fine, Mireia replied. her voice carrying a cold calculation I'd never heard before. We're making good money on the Airbnb, and I've been slowly moving funds through my account, so it doesn't look suspicious. He never checks his statements carefully. What about the long-term plan? Mireya smiled, and it was chilling. Once we have enough documentation, we can apply for credit in his name. His credit score is perfect, and he's so trusting. By the time he figures it out, we'll have what we need to disappear. Calder laughed. Dad always said I was too irresponsible to handle money. Turns out I'm pretty good at handling his. I felt sick watching my son mock me. But Mireya's next words made me furious. The best part is, he's so desperate to have a relationship with you that he'll forgive almost anything. Weak men always choose
187 messages to your gym partner? She's just a friend! Don't send photos like—
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
family loyalty over self-respect. Gordon paused the video. There's more, but I thought you should see this first. They're not just stealing from you, Ethan. They're planning to destroy your financial life. I stared at the frozen image of my son and his girlfriend, plotting my destruction in my own kitchen. Show me everything. Grand Osei's law office was small but organized, much like the man himself. The legal aid attorney listened to my story while taking detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions that showed he understood both the legal and emotional complexity of the situation. The good news is that you have excellent documentation, Grant said, reviewing the evidence I'd brought. Bank records, witness statements, video footage. This is a solid case. The bad news is that evicting family members can be complicated, especially if they claim tenant rights. He pulled out a form from building management that I'd never seen before. This is interesting. According to this document, your son filed a form claiming partial ownership of the apartment lease. But look at the signature. I examined the signature line. It was supposed to be mine, but the handwriting was wrong. The E in Ethan was too elaborate, and the H in Hale had a flourish I never used. He forged my signature, I said, the reality sinking in. That's a felony, Grant replied matter-of-factly. Combined with the identity theft and the unauthorized use of your financial accounts, your son has committed multiple serious crimes. We spent the next hour planning a strategy. Grant explained the legal eviction process, the documentation requirements, and the timeline I'd need to follow. The key is doing everything by the book, he emphasized. No confrontations, no emotional appeals, just legal procedure, followed exactly. That weekend, while Calder and Mireya were out, I systematically went through the apartment. I photographed everything, cataloged all of Calder's belongings, and packed them into labeled boxes. Each box was photographed, inventoried, and stored in the building's storage area. I also installed a small digital recorder in my bedroom, perfectly legal, since it was my apartment and my private space. Monday morning, I received a call from the building management office. Mr. Hale, we've received several noise complaints about your unit. Late-night parties, unfamiliar people in the hallways, and someone reported seeing commercial cleaning services that weren't authorized by management. I explained that I was dealing with an unauthorized subletting situation and was taking legal action. We appreciate you handling this properly, the manager said. We've also found this under your doormat. She handed me a scratched keycard. It's not one of ours. Someone's been making unauthorized copies. That evening, I served Calder and Mireya with formal eviction notices via certified mail. The legal clock was now ticking. Calder's reaction was immediate and predictable. Dad, you can't be serious. We're family. Family doesn't forge signatures or steal money, I replied calmly. Mireya's response was different. She looked angry rather than surprised. You can't prove anything. And good luck explaining to everyone why you're throwing your own son out on the street. But I noticed something. She immediately started making phone calls, and I heard her mention moving the listing and finding a new location. That night, Gordon called with an update. They spent 2 hours on your couch today planning their next move. The camera caught all of it. But Ethan, you need to see this before the final confrontation. Mireya isn't just helping your son. She's the one running the entire operation. The next few days were a masterclass in methodical preparation. I felt like I was building a legal fortress, one document at a time. I met Nina at a small cafe near our building to get her formal statement. She'd prepared a detailed timeline of the unusual activities she'd witnessed, complete with dates, times, and descriptions. "I've been thinking about this," she said, sliding the signed statement across the table. The pattern was too regular to be coincidental. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. And the people always looked confused about which apartment they were supposed to be in. Marcel from the bank called with an update on the fraud investigation. "We've traced several transactions that appear to be connected to online booking platforms. The money was being funneled through an account belonging to Mireia Rosales. We've frozen those funds pending investigation." Tessa from HR provided the final piece of the employment puzzle. "The payroll audit is complete. Someone definitely attempted to change your direct deposit information to an account at a different bank. The attempt was sophisticated. They had all your personal information. We've flagged your file and implemented additional security measures." Meanwhile, Calder and Mireia seemed oblivious to the walls closing in around them. They continued their routine, though I noticed they were being more secretive about their phone calls and computer activities. On Thursday evening, Mireia posted another Instagram story that would prove to be a crucial mistake. The video showed her and Calder toasting with champagne in what she called our luxury rental. But the video clearly showed my apartment's distinctive kitchen backsplash and the view from my living room window. In the caption, she wrote, "Living our best life in this amazing space. Hashtag blessed, hashtag luxury lifestyle, hashtag young entrepreneurs." I screenshot everything. That night, I noticed the red light on the smoke detector camera had stopped blinking. Gordon had mentioned he would retrieve the device once we had enough evidence. Its job was done. Friday morning brought a text from Mireia that crossed every line of decency. "You can't stop us, old man. You're too weak and too desperate for Calder's approval. We're going to take everything, and you're going to let us because you're pathetic." I forwarded the text to Grant, who immediately called me back. "That's harassment and a confession of intent," he said. "Combined with everything else, this is now a criminal matter, not just a civil one." I spent Friday evening organizing all my evidence into a comprehensive folder: bank records, video footage, witness statements, forged documents, social media posts, and the threatening text message. Everything was labeled, dated, and cross-referenced. Grant had prepared the formal eviction paperwork, and I'd changed all the locks and access codes to the apartment. Calder and Mireia would return that evening to find they could no longer enter. But I wouldn't be there for the confrontation. Grant had advised me to stay elsewhere while the legal process played out. As I packed a small overnight bag, my phone rang. It was Gordon. "Ethan, building management has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. They want all parties present. You, your son, building management, and they've requested a police presence. Bring everything you've documented." What triggered this? Apparently, 3 different people called the building today, claiming they had reservations for your apartment this weekend. Management put the pieces together and realized what's been happening. I looked around my apartment one last time. Tomorrow, everything would be out in the open. The careful, methodical case I'd built would be presented in full view of witnesses, management, and law enforcement. The red light was gone from the smoke detector, but I felt like I was still being watched, this time by justice itself. Saturday morning, I arrived at the building's community room at exactly 10 a.m., carrying my evidence folder and Gordon's backup drive. The room was fuller than I'd expected. Building management, a police officer, Nina with her witness statement, and Grant with his legal paperwork. Gordon was there too, his laptop set up and ready. Calder and Mireia arrived 15 minutes late, accompanied by a young man in an ill-fitting suit who they introduced as their legal representative. I later learned he was just a friend from college with no legal training. The building manager, Mrs. Chen, opened the meeting with a summary of the complaints and concerns that had led to this gathering. As she spoke, I watched Calder and Mireia's confidence slowly drain from their faces. "We've received multiple reports of unauthorized guests, commercial activity, and what appears to be illegal subletting," Mrs. Chen said. "Additionally, we've discovered forged documentation and unauthorized key duplication." Maria tried to interrupt. This is harassment. Mr. Hale is clearly having some kind of breakdown, and Ms. Rosales, the police officer interjected, please let management finish their presentation before you respond. Grant stood up and presented the legal framework. My client has documented extensive fraud, identity theft, and harassment. We have video evidence, bank records, and witness testimony that clearly show a pattern of criminal behavior. That's impossible, Calder said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dad, you're really going to let these people attack your own son? I remained silent. Grant had advised me to let the evidence speak for itself. Gordon opened his laptop and connected it to the room's display screen. I'm going to show you footage from a security camera that was inadvertently left in the apartment after the sale. The first video showed Calder going through my personal documents. The timestamp clearly showed it was during work hours when I wasn't home. The second video was the one that broke Calder's composure entirely. It showed him and Maria at my kitchen table, planning their fraud scheme and mocking my trust in them. The old man's so desperate for family connection, he'll forgive anything, Maria's voice echoed through the room. Weak men always choose family loyalty over self-respect. Calder's face went white. Dad, I can explain. Let's see the bank records, Marcel said, joining the meeting via video call. He presented a clear timeline of unauthorized transactions, the attempted payroll fraud, and the money trail leading to Maria's account. We've recovered $3,200 in fraudulent transfers, Marcel reported. The Airbnb account was registered under Ms. Rosales' name, with the funds being laundered through multiple accounts to avoid detection. Nina presented her witness statement, documenting the pattern of unknown guests accessing the building during work hours. Mrs. Chen then revealed the forged building management form. This document claims partial lease ownership for Calder Hale, but the signature is clearly fraudulent. We've compared it to Mr. Hale's legitimate signature on file. The police officer stepped forward. Based on the evidence presented, we have probable cause for multiple charges: identity theft, bank fraud, forgery, and harassment. Maria's composure finally cracked. This is insane. You can't prove we did anything wrong. Grant calmly opened his folder and read from her own text message. You can't stop us, old man. You're too weak and too desperate for Calder's approval. We're going to take everything. That was sent from your phone to Mr. Hale yesterday, Grant continued. It constitutes both harassment and confession of criminal intent. The police officer was already pulling out handcuffs. Ms. Rosales, Mr. Hale, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Calder turned to me with desperation in his eyes. Dad, please, I'm your son. You can't let them do this. For the first time in the entire meeting, I spoke. You stopped being my son the moment you decided to steal from me and mock my trust. Actions have consequences, Calder. Mrs. Chen announced that both Calder and Maria were permanently banned from all building properties. Their lawyer quietly slipped out during the arrests. As the police led them away, Maria's phone buzzed with notifications. Grant checked it with the officer's permission. Airbnb has suspended her account and frozen all associated funds, Grant announced. Apparently, multiple guests reported being scammed when they couldn't access the apartment they'd paid for. 3 months later, I was sitting in my apartment, truly my apartment now, reading the final legal documents. Calder had pled guilty to multiple fraud charges and received 2 years of probation plus restitution requirements. Maria, who was found to be the primary organizer of the scheme, received a harsher sentence, including jail time. The bank had recovered all stolen funds plus interest. My employer had implemented new security protocols and commended me for my thorough documentation of the payroll fraud attempt. Gordon had become a friend. We met weekly for coffee, and he'd helped me install a legitimate security system, one that I controlled completely. Nina remained a good neighbor and had become something of a building security unofficial coordinator, keeping an eye out for suspicious activity. Most importantly, I'd learned something about myself. For years, I'd confused enabling with love, weakness with kindness. I'd thought that being a good father meant accepting any behavior from my son, no matter how destructive. Ronan had been right. Respect must be enforced, not begged for. The red light in the smoke detector was gone, replaced by my own security system. But the real security came from something else. The knowledge that I was strong enough to protect myself, even from family members who would exploit my love. I still think about Calder sometimes. I hope prison and probation teach him what my unconditional forgiveness never could. That actions have consequences, and that real relationships are built on mutual respect, not one-sided exploitation. The apartment is quiet now, peaceful, and for the first time in years, I sleep soundly, knowing that the only person who has access to my life is someone I can trust completely, myself. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be a victim. Sometimes protecting yourself is the only way to protect the relationship itself. And sometimes the family you need to save is just yourself. The hidden camera may be gone, but the lesson remains. Never let anyone make you invisible in your own life.